So we'll be continuing with the gates today. The tribes, we know about the tribes, the 12 different tribes in the Bible, the 12 tribes of Israel, but the different parts in the Bible that talk about them. So the original 12, the land division, and the sealed 12. So when we talk about the gates, we'll be again talking about the sealed 12 of Israel, which is in Revelation 7, 4-8. And they are the ones on Revelation 21:12 that have their names on that gates. So just a little background again, we all know, but it's always good to just refresh. Leah, which was Jacob's wife, first wife, he bore Jacob 6 sons, 6 sons plus 1 daughter. And then Zilpah and Bilhah, the maids of each, Rachel and Leah, that bore 2 each. And then Rachel, the beloved of Jacob. So today we'll be talking about one of Rachel's son, Joseph, which is in the gates. We had the sermon last week. It was mostly about Joseph, so today is just a repeat of that and of that character. But when we go back to before Rachel got Joseph, there's a huge gap there from Leah's firstborn Reuben until Rachel got Joseph. But this was Rachel's firstborn. And so he would be special to Rachel and special to Jacob because this was his love and this was their son and this was their eldest son. So let's just, from Genesis 30, 22 and 23, it says, "And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bare a son and said, God has taken away my reproach." So did God forget Rachel? No. So to know more about that, we'll go into Joseph's life. So Genesis 30, 25, "And it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, Send me away, that I may go unto my own place and to my country." So from then, when Joseph was born, he was going to start to be separated from a familiar place that they were dwelling in for 14 years. Now, Jacob has told his father-in-law, "I want to leave." And this is Joseph is just born. "I want to leave." Joseph from birth started the separation from his family, extended family. Genesis 30, 27, but his father-in-law, he said, and Laban said in Genesis 30, 27, unto him, "I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake." So from experience, Jacob's father-in-law told Jacob, "See, from my experience, I'm blessed. I have all this now, but because of you." So he wanted Jacob to stay. However, Jacob had other plans, so he eventually just left. And we know the story from there. He left. Laban came after him, and then they separate ways from there. So let's move on to the blessing. The blessing of Joseph. Genesis 49 from verses 22. Joseph is a fruitful bough, even a fruitful bough by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him, and shot at him, and hated him. 24, but his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From thence is the shepherd the stone of Israel, even by God of thy father, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, who shall bless thee, the blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lieth under, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors, unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. So what a prophecy, what a blessing. And we know the story, how it became true. In the pages of the sacred history, Joseph stands prominent among few characters of whom inspiration has recorded no faults. It's very hard to see Joseph's faults. Joseph received one of the three portions of the birthright. It is interesting to note that each part of the birthright has been immortalized. So the birthright, we know it was supposed to be Reuben, but let's go quickly to that birthright. The birthright of the elders was to be the lineage of Christ, priesthood, and a double portion. However, because of Reuben's grave sin, this birthright was given to the other brothers. So Judah, he received the lineage of Christ, Revelation 5:5, and Christ is identified as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And Levi was given the priesthood. Levi triumphed in the time of a great crisis in the cause of God, and thus perfected a character which entitled him to be the priesthood. I think we learned about it in the Exodus, when Moses came back from the Mount Sinai and bringing the table of stones. When he reached there, and he asked them, who will be with me or with the Lord? All the Levites came with him. So, and that was the Levites. And Joseph was given the third birthright, which was the double portion of the inheritance. So 2 portions of the promised land were given to the family of Joseph. And we also know that 2 of the gates of the New Jerusalem was under Joseph. So it was Joseph and 1 for his son Manasseh. So the first 17 years of the life was spent with his father's household. The principal points recorded in the early life of Joseph were the great love of Jacob for the lad, the coat of many colors, Joseph's dreams, and his being sold in Egypt. So there was evidently a marked significance to the coat of many colors. Joseph was not a child when given the coat, but a young man, 17 years of age, with exemplary character. So Jacob giving Joseph the coat of many colors, there was something behind it. It was not just because he was the favorite son and that he gave the coat of many colors, but it was something behind it. The old father knew that Reuben had forfeited his right to officiate as priest of the household. And as the patriarch watched the godly life of Joseph, It would be only natural that he should select him as one worthy to fill the holy office. So from Jacob's understanding, looking at Jacob's understanding of Joseph, of his character, of his way of life, he thought, oh, this son of mine would be a priest. Because he already knew Reuben had already forfeited because of his sin. So he thought that Joseph would be a priest. However, but God sees not as man sees. From the group of envious, jealous sons plotting murder in their hearts, the Lord took one, purified and refined him until his descendants were fitted to fill the holy office of the priesthood. And we know that that was Levi, that God took. 1 Samuel 16:7, it says, the Lord seeth not as man seeth. For man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. So that was when Samuel came to look for a king, and he saw David's oldest brother and said that, oh, big, strong, should be king. But then that's what the Lord said. You look at the outward, I look at the in. Also in Jeremiah 17:10, it says, I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doing. So although Jacob thought that Joseph would be a priest, it was not God's intent. Jeremiah 29:11, it says, for I alone know the plans for you. Yes, that's right. Know the plans for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. So Jacob's sight was tunneled, but God was looking at broader thing. He was looking right at the future. The dreams of Joseph, revealing that the family would bow down before him, were more than the jealous hearts of the 10 brothers could endure. In Genesis 37, 6-10. So Joseph, this young fellow, he's saying to his brothers, you will bow down to me. Even now, when we see it as a family member, like if Junior is saying to Dee, you do this for me, when you grow up, you'll be doing this for me. And so it's natural for them to feel like that, for the brothers. However, they were like more than that. When Joseph came, when Jacob sent Joseph to his brothers, when Joseph came to his brothers in the field at a distance from their father, it would seem that all but Reuben had murderous desire against him. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, some evil beast has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of this dreamer. And Reuben heard it, and delivered him out of the hands, and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of the hands to deliver him to his father again. So it was only Reuben that was thinking that, no, this is our blood, this is our brother, we shouldn't kill him. And he suggested that the spirit of prophecies talks about that same situation like this. Joseph, unsuspicious of what was to befall him, approached his brethren with gladness of heart. to greet them after his long, wearisome journey. His brothers rudely repulsed him. He told them his errand, but they answered him not. Joseph was alarmed at their angry looks. Fear took the place of joy, and he instinctively shrank with dread from their presence. They then took hold of him violently. They taunted him with the admonitions he had given them in the past, and accused him of relating his dreams to exalt himself above them in the mind of their father, that he might love him more than themselves. They accused him of hypocrisy as they gave utterance to their envious feeling. Satan controlled their minds, and they had no sense of pity and no feelings of love for their brother.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
When they were in Egypt, and Joseph could hear what they were saying.
Yes.
No wonder all that stuff came back into their minds, what they had done.
That's right.
Amazing,
Yeah.
isn't it?
So continuing with that one, Joseph was weary and hungry when he was coming, because he had been traveling a lot, a whole length of year. Joseph was weary and hungry, yet they gave him neither rest nor food. And they took him and cast him into an empty pit. But after they had begun to accomplish their wicked purpose to the helpless innocent Joseph, some of them were ill at ease. They did not feel the satisfaction they thought they should have to see Joseph perish. So they brought him. Sometimes we are also like that. When we don't like a person, we think we have these thoughts of bad against him. But when it actually happens, we tend to, should I have done that? Should we have? And this is what was happening to the brothers after they put him into the pit, some of them. They were again thinking of him. So what they did, so when they saw a group of Ishmaelites from beyond the Jordan on their way to Egypt, they decided to sell Joseph. So, yeah. So now they have a little pity, they don't want to kill him, but they said, no, let us sell him. That is what they were thinking. And so they brought Jacob out of the well. But for Joseph, as he saw the merchants and the dreadful truth flashed upon him, to become a slave was a fate more to be feared than death. In an agony of terror, he appealed to one and another of his brother, but in vain. So now he's up there, and the merchants have him, and he's calling Judah, he's calling Levi, he's calling his brothers. He's asking them, no, don't send me into slavery. I don't want to go. You are my blood, you are my family. Some were moved with pity, but fear of being ridiculed or of being mocked kept them silent. All felt that they had now gone too far to retreat. So on his way, Joseph, on his way, being born, in the distance, the hills among which lay his father's tents. Bitterly he wept and thought of that loving father in his loneliness and affliction. So on the journey, they probably went to rest somewhere because it's a far distance. And Joseph's memory is just going. He's looking over the hills where his tent is, where his father's tent is, and he's thinking, my father, what will he be thinking? What will happen if he knows that I'm here? Or will he ever think of me again? Again, the scene of Dothan came up before him. He saw his angry brothers and felt their fierce glances bent upon him. The stinging, insulting words that had met his agonized entreaties were ringing in his ears. With a terrible heart, he looked forward to the future. What a change in situation. From the tenderly cherished son to the despised and helpless slave. So he had to learn in a few hours that which years might not otherwise have taught him. But on his journey, he remembered Jacob's stories about God's delivery and believed that God will be with him. So he's being taken. He is now in a new situation. He's now a slave, completely different from the love of his father, from his own tent. And now he just remembers Jacob's story, that God was with Jacob, my father. God will be with me. Joseph was sold, we know the story, to Potiphar, captain of the king's guard, exposed to temptation of no ordinary character. He was in the midst of idolatry, the worship of false gods, was surrounded by all the pomp of royalty, supported by wealth and culture of the most highly civilized nation then in existence. However, yet Joseph preserved his simplicity and his fidelity to God. The sights and sounds of vice were all about him, but he was all one who saw and heard not. His thoughts were not permitted to linger upon forbidden subjects, but he was not ashamed of the religion of his father, and he made no effort to hide the fact that he was the worshipper of Jehovah. So now he's surrounded with everything that the world back then could be tempted with. Everything. He was in Egypt. But he was one that saw and heard not. He was not ashamed to show that he is a worshipper of Jehovah. Sometimes for us in a crowd, we cannot stand out because we are ashamed to say that we are a worshipper of Jehovah. We are ashamed to say that we know God. But Joseph, from everything around him, from being a slave, so that he can get a better life as a slave, he was not ashamed. Romans 1:16, Paul says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ." Luke 9:26, "For whosoever shall be ashamed of me and of my words, of him shall the Son of Man be ashamed, when he shall come in his own glory and his Father's and of the holy angels." Acts 7:9. "And the patriots, moved with envy, sold Joseph into Egypt, but God was with him, and delivered him out of all his affliction, and gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he made him governor over Egypt and all of his house." So even though Jacob was living as a slave, he knew that God would be with him as God was with his father. So now we read in Acts that, and delivered, Acts 7:10, he was delivered out of all his affliction, and gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he was made governor. So a little about Joseph's upbringing. When considering the strict integrity of Joseph in the midst of Egyptian darkness, we must not forget that Rachel, his mother, lived until he was about 16 years of age. After she had, by her godly instruction, fortified her son for the great life work before him, God in mercy laid Rachel to rest before Joseph was sold into Egypt. So she was spared the great sorrow. So that 16 years, from the beginning, it was quite a while before Rachel had Joseph.
Is that from the spirit of prophecy?
Yep, spirit of prophecy.
Well, it makes sense, because she had the boy, then he died, and then she died.
Yeah,
The last boy.
yeah.
But I didn't know that it was 16 years difference. That's quite a age gap, isn't it?
It is.
16 years with Joseph, the mom with Joseph, 16 years. Because Joseph was 17 when he was sold. So after being, barren for that many years, looking at Leah have children, one after another, looking at the maids have children, one after another. And finally, for Rachel to have her own son, so she would have been over Joseph all the time, teaching, loving, instructing.
Like the mother of Eli.
Hannah. And throughout eternity, she will see the fruit of her training. For it was no doubt his mother's godly instruction that enabled Joseph to connect with God so closely that his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the bands of the mighty God of Jacob. Or it's from the cross and its shadow. So the importance of a mother's teaching. Rachel was jealous, from the beginning. She was jealous towards Leah. However, this was never seen in Joseph. Joseph was never jealous. So it was the upbringing. The way now Rachel was grounding Joseph. Proverbs 1:8, my son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. And Proverbs 1:9, for there shall be an ornament of grace unto the head, and chains about thy neck. So it's a lesson for us today, what we will be teaching our younger generation. And for the young generation, what they will pass on when their time comes. So Jacob, the things that he faced, betrayal by his brother. He was betrayed by his brother. Joseph's brothers were jealous of him, plotted to kill him, instead sold him into slavery, causing immense emotional trauma and a loss of his rights and family. Slavery and false accusation. Joseph was bought by Potiphar, an official in the Pharaoh's court. He was falsely accused of rape by Potiphar's wife and thrown into prison. And the third thing, imprisonment and hardship. Joseph spent years in prison, facing harsh realities of confinement and the bitterness of injustice. Separated from his home and family, he had to adjust to a new and difficult life in a foreign country. So this is what all Joseph went through. But eventually, what God did to him, when the dreams of Joseph's childhood were fulfilled, and his brothers bowed with their faces to the earth before him, then he remembered his dream. He had forgotten his dream. He was a slave. He didn't know how his dream will come true. How will my brothers come back and bow to me? I'm a slave. But he still believed. So when his brothers came, and when he was already a ruler in Egypt, a governor in Egypt, when his brothers came and asked for food, he said, no, you are spies. You are spies. And they said, no, we are not spies. We are all one man's son. We are true men. That's in Genesis 42:11. We are true men, thy servants are no spies. Genesis 42. Then, however, Reuben had just reminded the brother of their cruelty to Joseph. Joseph understood them, turned away from them, and wept, then returned to them. Because Joseph was not talking directly to them. He was using an interpreter when he was talking to the brothers. So Joseph told them that the interpreter spoke to them and said that Joseph said that they are spies. But finally, after 3 days of them being bound, because Joseph had told them that one of you go back, the rest will stay and be here with me. But then they didn't want to go back alone, because they know if one of the brothers go back alone and tell Jacob that, oh, the others are being slaved in Egypt, because the governor thought that we are spies, and he wants proof, and he wants me to bring back Benjamin. So they thought, oh, I'll kill whoever goes. We'll kill Jacob of this thing that we'll say. So they were there 3 days in Egypt altogether. And after that, after the 3 days, Joseph said, okay, only one will stay, the rest will go. So Simeon stayed. He didn't stay on his own. He was arrested by Joseph. He wished to learn if they possessed the same haughty spirit as when he was with them, and also to draw from them some information in regard to their home. Yet he well knew how deceptive their statements might be. So he, yep. During the years since Joseph had been separated from his brothers, these sons of Jacob had changed in character. Envious, turbulent, deceptive, cruel, and revengeful they had been, but now, when tested by adversity, they were shown to be unselfish, true to one another, devoted to their father, and themselves middle-aged men subject to his authority. Joseph had been chief ruler in Egypt 9 years, because the dream is 7 years of good, 7 years of bad. Eh? So this is after 7 years of bad, and now this is into 2 years of good that the brothers came. When his brothers came to Egypt to buy food, it is interesting to note that when Joseph told his brothers that he would keep Benjamin as a hostage, he had the satisfaction of hearing Judah, the very one who years before and suggested selling Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, offered to become bondmen for life in place of Benjamin, because of the interpreter. So he understood what they were saying, but they still did not know that he understood. But then eventually, Joseph told them that he is Joseph, and then they were sent with. We all know the story, so I'm just jumping ahead. Joseph was the brothers were sent back, and then they were told to bring Jacob and everything. So even up to the animals, Joseph sent caravans to bring everybody in. And then Joseph had the privilege of sustaining his father, his brother, for many years, and seeing the fulfillment of his youthful dreams. So during Joseph's long life of 110 years, we have no record of his ever proving untrue to God in any way. He died with a firm faith in the promise made to Isaac and Jacob. His last words were, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry my bones from thence. So Joseph's character bore the tests alike of adversity and prosperity. The same fidelity to God was manifest when he stood in the place of Pharaoh as when in a prisoner's cell. He was still a stranger in a heathen land, separated from his kindred, the worshippers of God, but he fully believed that the divine hand had directed his steps, and in constant reliance upon God, he faithfully discharged the duties of his position. Pharaoh gave him a new name, Zephaniah Pinaya or something. Yeah, gave him a new name. It did not change his character.
No. Like
Amen. Through Joseph, the attention of the king and great men of Egypt was directed to the true God. And though they adhered to their idolatry, they learned to respect the principles revealed in the life and the character of the worshipper of Jehovah. So, like when Jacob was with Laban, and Laban told him, "Don't leave. Because of you, I'm blessed." Egypt, in this instant, it was because of Joseph, God, they were blessed. So his body was embalmed, and when Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt, they fulfilled his dying charge. And you can see that in Exodus 19. We had been reading it in the quarters lesson, and Moses took the bones of Joseph with him. Joseph received one part of the birthright, the double portion of the inheritance. This portion of the birthright is perpetuated throughout eternity by two divisions of the 144,000, representing the family of Joseph. So one was, the gate is Joseph, and the other gate was Manasseh. So 12,000 from the 144,000 will enter the new Jerusalem through the gate with the banner of Joseph. So if you see yourself in Joseph today, no faults, that's good.
I don't know about that gate. The other gate you talked about, I think it's
The formation of a noble character is the work of a lifetime and must be the result of a diligent and persevering effort. God gives the opportunity. Success depends on the use made of them. So God will present you with the opportunity. It's up to you to make use of them. So as we look back at Joseph's life, he was given an opportunity, but of a different kind. He struggled all from his youthhood until he was a governor in Egypt. But with all that opportunity that God gave him as a slave at Pontiphil's house, in the prison, no, they were all opportunities. God gave him opportunities. He used them well. And he's the governor.